WNST, Taos in Baltimore, here in Baltimore, but it will be in my living room all weekend long. I'm certainly not going up to Philadelphia to watch Matt Ryan, but I will be watching from here. This guy will be watching from Natick, Massachusetts. I'm learning how to pronounce it. It looks like Natick. My wife's pretty good at pronunciations for all weird Cape Cod towns and all that stuff. He is Aaron Schatz. He does all things Football Outsiders. He's one of our defending champs around here, watching football, previewing football, and you can find him out of Football Outsiders on the web as well as at FO_A Shots, and that's SCHATZ. Aaron, Happy New Year to you, man. It's always great to be watching playoff football. Always a lot more fun when we're in it instead of watching from the outside.
Yeah, I was going to say Happy New Year, not necessarily as happy as football. That was a massive disappointment, unfortunately, but there is good football to be watched, even if your team is not in it.
Well, yeah, and I guess there's four more teams from last weekend not feeling so good about themselves, like Kansas City and certainly the LA Rams with some home court advantage they couldn't take advantage of. Now we move forward to this weekend where the Falcons come into Philadelphia as a favorite, and whatever we thought about Nick Foles 3, 4, 5 years ago, certainly that stock is down right now, and everyone expecting the Falcons to go into Philadelphia and win.
Yeah, I think that people are sort of overestimating the importance of the Week 16 game where he played so terribly against the Raiders, partially because he did it on national television, but Foles was fine the week before. He barely played in Week 17. I think that the difference between Foles and Wentz, I'm not sure that's enough to make up the difference between the Falcons and the Eagles. Not that the Eagles should win easily or anything like that, but the Falcons being favored sort of assume that either A, their defense is much better than it looked during the regular season, or B, that the difference between Wentz and Foles is something similar to the difference between Aaron Rodgers and Brett Hundley. And I don't think it's that large.
Well, I mean, part of it's going to be the running game. Part of it's going to be the defense and the weather conditions the game's played in. Leveling the field would be for Matt Ryan coming out of a cozy dome and going back to his homeland and throwing the football around, right?
I should point out that the horrifying cold that I'm assuming Baltimore has been through in the last couple of weeks, just like Boston has, is over, and so it is going to be like 40 degrees or something. It's not like the worst weather in the world for this game. I mean, the same thing goes for Tennessee going up to Foxborough. It's not the weather that we're thinking about from the last couple of weeks. It's going to be warmer than that. So I don't think the weather is that big a concern.
The defense is a concern, though, certainly on the Eagles side. Schwartz had these guys playing at almost as high a level as the offense was playing at one point. That's what made it such complimentary football back in November. That they're still trying to piece that together, too, and the defense is going to have to do a lot for them to win.
Higher level. Football Outsiders ratings, when Wentz went out, we had the offense fourth and the Philadelphia defense third. So even when Wentz was in there, the Philadelphia defense was playing at a higher level than the offense was. Now, the problem, to me, the bigger question is not the Philly defense, but the Atlanta defense. We know what the Philly defense is. The Philly defense is really, really good. They're really strong in the front seven. They bring a lot of pressure. Now they have Ronald Darby back at cornerback, so the cornerbacks are better. But Atlanta, there is so much raw talent on that defense, and it doesn't seem to really show up in production early in the season, and then things get better. This is the second straight year that Atlanta's defense improved in the second half. They're 29th in our ratings in the first half of the season. They're 11th in our ratings in the second half of the season. So I think in the second half of the season, they were finally the defense everyone expected to be because they've got all that youth and all those fast guys, but they're still not as good as the Philadelphia defense. So they're really counting on being so much better at the quarterback position because if you look at every other position on the roster, I mean, Atlanta is better at quarterback, at running back, and at number one receiver. I don't know if there's any other position that I would say they are better than Philadelphia.
It's interesting you talk about the Falcons and the Eagles a couple of years ago having coaches fired in recent terms. And we're sitting here in Baltimore trying to piece all this together. Certainly Cincinnati could have gone the other direction on Marvin for the fifth time and didn't. And finally there's some break in what's going on here in Baltimore where Ozzie has picked every player there's ever been for 22 years. Harbaugh has now survived 3 years in a row where they didn't make the playoffs in 4 out of 5 after a Super Bowl. And I'm re-releasing Purple Rain 2 this week, Aaron Schatz. Schatz. It's been 5 years. I mean, it's the 5th anniversary. It sort of marks a little bit of an era here, and we're on the outside watching. But I would say this, for the Saints, for the Eagles, for the Falcons, for these teams that I'm seeing playing football right now, really it does go back to your hard work in February and March and April leading up to the draft where, I got to meet you in that sort of that vein. If you draft well and your guys are healthy, this is how you play in January, having some sort of depth to be talking about. I mean, certainly the Saints, over the last 2 years, they've just got better football players on the field right now.
Yeah, but I think that getting rid of Harbaugh would be the equivalent of the Saints having gotten rid of Sean Payton in the last couple of years. I mean, yeah, Sean Payton wasn't making the playoffs. The team was 7-9, but everyone was cognizant of the fact that Sean Payton was one of the top head coaches in the game. And I think everybody basically feels the same way about John Harbaugh. I mean, we could talk about what happened with the Ravens. There's no question that was one of the better teams in the league this year, and it's awful the way that they choked in Week 17. But that defense is phenomenal. The special teams is still phenomenal. I think Harbaugh still does an excellent job. But the biggest problem that team has is they're stuck with a quarterback who, they signed him to a big contract, went backwards. And he's just not good anymore. I hate saying that because he's a really good guy, but he's just not a good NFL starting quarterback anymore.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts around him as well over the last 4 or 5 years, beginning with receivers like...
either. Let's be honest. The receivers have not been good either, but it starts with the quarterback.
Well, when you draft Bashad Perriman, you can't even get him on the field in playoff circumstances at the end of his 3rd season. That's B-U-S-T. That sort of crosses the top of the T.
Yeah.
And
he's been a failure. There's no question about it. And I was a big Perriman fan coming out. He did really well in our projection system. I think he's a real disappointment. But you do have to also point out they have a good offensive line, even despite all the injuries this year. The offensive line was good, and they had a good running game once Alex Collins emerged.
Well, and he did emerge, at least for that. Let's talk about these other games this weekend. Anything emerging AFC-wise in your mind that could create an upset? I know people have talked about Jacksonville and Pittsburgh, and they played them tough and beat them up pretty good earlier in the year and certainly picked off Ben 5 times. I don't see 5 picks at the Confluence on Sunday. Some thoughts about anything weird happening here to sort of offset my little date with destiny next weekend for Steelers-Patriots duty?
Yeah, weird things happen. Nothing's 100%, right? But, look, the Jaguars-Steelers, the Jaguars could absolutely win. That first game was kind of fluky, okay? What the Jaguars did to the Steelers was kind of fluky. But the Jaguars are the least consistent team in the league. But it's better to be inconsistent when you are the inferior team. Because when you're the inferior team and you're inconsistent, you could have a surprisingly good performance where you beat a better team because you just happen to be better on that day. So it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility for Jacksonville to surprise Pittsburgh. Blake Bortles, super inconsistent, but had a couple of games this year where he was very good. And there's no question the Pittsburgh's defense has started to have the kind of weird coverage breakdowns that the Patriots were having early in the season. As far as that other game goes, it would be a massive shock to everybody for the Patriots to lose to the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is by far the weakest team left in the field. The Patriots are right now the strongest team in the league if you look at our weighted ratings that reduce the importance of the early games because they played so much better. In the second half of the season, they're susceptible to the run, so Derrick Henry is going to get his, but there's just so many ways in which the Patriots have it over the Titans. Just to give one example, the best receiver for the Titans is the tight end, Delaney Walker. Well, the best coverage for the Patriots, they're 20th or lower in our ratings, covering every kind of receiver except tight ends where they're 8th. Meanwhile, they use a lot of passes to running backs, and can you guess what's the worst defense in the league this year, defending passes to running backs?
Go for it.
It's the Tennessee Titans, which is just not a very good matchup for them in this game. So everything is pointing to a Patriots win. I do think the Steelers are rightly favored. It's not out of the range of possibility that Jacksonville could win.
Yeah, we sit here and watch Nashville and watch Jacksonville in the playoffs and say, how in the world? And then we go back to, you talk about susceptible to linebacking cores and running backs. And, the Ravens stunk it up against the Titans in Nashville. The Ravens stunk it up, big time stunk it up in London against the Jaguars. And these teams are playing football, and the Ravens were not given that opportunity to go and play in these big games. And then, to your point with the Steelers and sort of their susceptibility, I mean, they need health from Bell and Brown to really have a chance to be dancing in the streets of Minnesota. Without those guys, they can't win.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing about the Patriots is that it seems like every single game that the Patriots play against the Steelers, one of those three guys is available or gets injured during the game, Bell, Brown, or Big Ben. Well, just once, we would like to see a game where the Patriots play the Steelers and all three guys are in the game for the entire game. Like, it would be nice to see, and hopefully we're going to see it next week.
Certainly, as a Baltimorean, Aaron, you could appreciate that is sort of ISIS and Al-Qaeda for us every time the Steelers and the Patriots get together.
I know the answer to who Baltimore fans are rooting for when it comes to the Patriots and Steelers.
The NFC.
Whoever wins the NFC, correct.
Aaron Schatz joining us here. He's the head of Football Outsiders and an ESPN Insider analyst. You can find him out on Twitter at FO_A Schatz. That's SCHATZ, and at FootballOutsiders.com up there in Massachusetts. You're surrounded by the chowder up there, right? So what do you make of this Brady Belichick Kraft Garoppolo situation? Certainly, you rate quarterbacks, and Jimmy Garoppolo was everybody's flavor in December, right?
Well, he was fabulous in December. I would hope people don't completely jump to conclusions based on 1 month of play. It still was only 5 games. And as great as Garoppolo was not any better in his limited play this year than Deshaun Watson was in his limited play this year. Both of them were tremendous, but both of them we get to see over a full season. Now, I will say that I watched this weekend's Sunday playoff games with my friend Christopher Price, who writes for BostonSportsJournal.com and is very plugged into the Patriots locker room. And he felt strongly that the issue with the Patriots is not Garoppolo, it's Guerrero. Okay, the Patriots knew there was no way they were going to keep Garoppolo past this year. It just was not possible. There are questions about why they didn't maybe try to save him till the end of the year, franchise him, and then trade him then. But there is something to the idea that Bill Belichick wanted to make sure that Garoppolo was traded to the NFC so that he would get as far away from the Patriots as possible, and they would only face him once every 4 years. The real problem in the Patriots locker room right now is not this trade or anything about the quarterback. It's Alex Guerrero, who is Tom Brady's guru, who's also been working with Rob Gronkowski and Devin McCourty, but Belichick does not like his methods, and they disagree on a lot of methods, and they've had these problems where Belichick wants players to do something, or the Patriots trainers want players to work out a certain way, and then Guerrero says, no, you shouldn't do that, and then they have these disagreements. That is where the real source of the tension is in the Patriots locker room, not the Garoppolo situation.
Well, either way, we'll be shocked if they're not playing in Minnesota a couple weeks from now. Aaron Schatz joining us here from Football Outsiders. Last thing, we haven't talked about the Minnesota Vikings. And if Atlanta were to go into Philadelphia and win that game on Saturday, the Vikings wake up on Sunday with a chance to win, host the NFC Championship game, and then win and host the Super Bowl and potentially win the Super Bowl. It's really a crazy, as many times as, the Saints have had the game, or Tampa or Dallas, or, wherever the game has been all these years. This is the closest we're coming to it being a reality, right?
Yeah, we had the Saints better in our ratings for the year, but not enough to make us home field advantage, so I would still favor the Vikings in this game. The Vikings don't have a great running game without Dalvin Cook, but otherwise they're a very well, evenly balanced team that's good in every area: the pass defense, run defense, special teams, the passing offense. There are many questions to be asked about how Case Keenum turned into an MVP candidate when you're talking about a guy who was an undrafted journeyman before this year, but you can't question that that's what he's been, with a lot of help, obviously, from, for example, the receivers are absolutely fantastic route runners, Thielen and Diggs. They beat better cornerback constantly because they're just the technical savvy, getting their feet in at the sideline, all kinds of reasons why they make catches other receivers won't make.
Well, then you got to get him the ball. And, look, I saw Case Keenum come out of a tree and beat the Ravens 3 years ago down in Houston, literally. And so I don't put anything past him, but from a coaching standpoint, to be on your third quarterback, and even with a defense that's that special, this would be a great, great story for a place like Minnesota that's never won a Super Bowl to have waited 52 years to get to this point, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, win the Super Bowl at home. I mean, I don't know how much home field advantage is with all the corporate fat cats that get tickets to the Super Bowl, but no, it would be a fabulous story. It's a beautiful building. I mean, their stadium is beautiful. It's going to be a beautiful place to have this game. I don't want to be walking around in Minneapolis for 5 days around the game, but it's a beautiful place to have the game. And it's a really good team, and they're fans that absolutely deserve it. And the nation as a whole, look, I'll be honest, as a Bostonian, the nation as a whole would love to watch the Patriots get smacked. And if the Patriots get smacked by Pittsburgh, frankly, the nation would probably like to watch Pittsburgh get smacked. I think they'd rather see Minnesota win their first than Pittsburgh win their seventh or whatever it is.
I think I'd rather see Minnesota win anything than New England or Pittsburgh win. But we still feel sorry for the people in Cleveland here. We do have a heart. So, hey, always great to have you on, man. Tell everybody what you guys do because what you do is very unique at Football Outsiders.
Right. Well, I mean, it's advanced statistical analysis of football, similar to what's been done in baseball for years, although at this point it's been done in football by us for years. This is our 15th season covering the game. I can't believe I've been doing this long. Go to footballoutsiders.com. You find a lot of strong analysis, both stats, and we have film work where we have film guys that break that down. And, of course, we'll be covering things all throughout the offseason, free agency, the draft, and then our big book that comes out every year in July, the Football Outsiders Almanac, that contains everything you need to know to get ready for the season. So people should check out our site all throughout the offseason. I'm sure there'll be some dissection of what went wrong in Baltimore and how to fix it next year, along with what went right with the Rams and how they can not have it go wrong next year and the other 30 teams besides.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the offseason. Now it becomes more like esoteric stuff like how much money is Ryan Jensen going to get from whom, right? I mean, that's where we are with players you'd like to keep at this point, trying to figure out value and trying to figure out cap. And more than that, right now, we're trying to figure out who's going to be coaching some of these teams, right?
Oh, yeah. Coach, it's because here's the thing is I think a lot of teams want McDaniels or Patricia, but you've got to wait for the Patriots to finish things out.
Yeah, and, this thing's going to be going on for a couple of weeks if you're waiting on those guys, I think. At least 1 week for sure. Hey, man, we'll send everybody out to Football Outsiders. Always great to visit with you, Aaron. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Hope everybody enjoys the games this weekend.
Oh, yeah, man. We'll enjoy better weather. At least we won't be frozen.
Yes, no kidding. It is so much nicer out there than it was a week ago.
Start a little fire pit and go. It's, it's 50 degrees out. Aaron Schatz joining us here. You can find him FO_A Schatz. That's SCHATZ. Looks like Schatz, sounds like Shots, which I prefer from the Laverne and Shirley beer factory days in Milwaukee. Schlemiel, Schlemazel, something like that. The BuyItToyota.com audio vault is there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. We're also delivering our WNST morning newspaper digitally to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's always $10 a month, never any commitment. They're ready to take you into 2018 and get you in the best shape of your life. A little reminder for the newspaper as well. I am releasing for the very first time 24 chapters of Purple Rain 2, releasing that a chapter a day every day for the next 24 days online. It'll also be appearing in the morning newspaper as well as on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and of course, we always stream live here at our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. You can also email me nasty at WNST.net. We are putting together the interest list for the Ray Lewis Canton Hall of Fame bus trip. I am putting together the final details on that. We are thinking that the final details will come on February 2nd when he's voted in. But between now and then, you can read Purple Rain 2 and throw me an email if you're going to be joining us in Canton. Last but never least, any breaking news happens, hiring of coaches, if the Orioles trade Manny Machado to the Mets or something, you'll get it first on the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Of course, Dennis Colatzos will be here with you, driving you home on Thursday, getting you ready for a weekend of football. It is the SSV on WNST. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.